and I'm Jill Savage here with our editor-in-chief, Matthew Peterson.
Hey.
And our DC correspondent, Chris Bedford. Gentlemen, sad to say, Pride Month has come to an end. The calendar has turned over. We are now in July. We have officially made it through Pride Month.
Wow, I feel as if it didn't happen this year. Maybe because I ignored it, and also we think, right? Chris, we've published on this. It's diminishing.
It is diminishing for all except for Jaguar, who had an epically bad sales month this month. You might remember that they put out that ad about how they're erasing everything and redoing everything. It was it was weirder than a Smashing Pumpkins music video. It was stranger than a Marilyn Manson music video. Trent Reznor has not made creepier music than this. And it was nothing but androgynous, strange people cavorting in dresses. There was no cars in the ad, and it was universally panned. They were late to this game, but then they got rid of all the old Jaguars, like the amazing stuff.
Yes.
And this year, in all of Europe, they sold less than 50 cars this month, excuse me. Now compare that to almost 1,700 in April of last year, and turns out, I mean, go woke, go broke.
Yeah, we had a few people on the show to talk about that one, and it was fascinating at the time because, like you said, they were late to the party, and it's also the exact opposite of their brand. I mean, really, everything about Jaguar was refuted. Was rejected in that advertisement. So we are starting to see some real returns. I mean, the wokeness is still present and accounted for, but that's a symbol, I think, of hopefully the end of all this nonsense.
My grandfather picked up the CEO of British Airways decades ago on the tarmac at his private jet. My grandfather pulls up in a Mercedes. CEO is probably an RAF veteran or a military veteran for sure. And they had a good business transaction. He dropped him off at the end. And at the end of the meeting, as he was getting out of the car, he said, do me a favor, old boy, and buy yourself a Jag. Send me the bill.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think you would hear that again. They used to be synonymous with British engineering, and now it's gay.
Yeah, well, the UK has had its hard times lately, and the hilarious thing about that is, like, who do you think buys Jaguars? I mean, what does it stand for? It was really remarkable in a complete self-destruct. But the other big companies have just kind of slowly walked back. Mm-hmm. You see them slowly step away, but sadly, the regime is still in place of wokeness in these companies. So we'll see how that goes. A lot more to come there, I think.
Well, Elon Musk, he doesn't have a woke car company, but our favorite bromance, you guys, things are not going well. The feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk is actually heating up. And earlier today, Donald Trump was asked if he would consider deporting Musk. Watch.
I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want to have maybe gasoline, maybe electric, maybe a hybrid, maybe someday a hydrogen. If you have a hydrogen car, it has one problem. It blows up, So I'm going to give that one to Peter. I'm going to let Peter test it out.
All right, Elon was out on X earlier today, and he was like, you know what? Get rid of the EV mandate. I don't care, right? I know that not everybody wants this, but Matt, when we look at this, like, there's a feud going on now, right? This has raised to a level where we actually have to talk about what is going on right now with the Republican Party.
Yeah, this is a really important split. Obviously, when someone spends that amount of money, anything over $10 million is significant. Never mind over $100 million on a campaign, pledges that money, richest man in the world, and also I want to get into later today the symbol that Musk stands for, right? The last American industrialist, really. That's important stuff. So this rift is real, and we want to unpack it today, and we have to unpack more rifts within the coalition because we want a big, beautiful coalition, just like everyone in the audience, and it's important that everyone understands what exactly is going on here. And I would say on the Trump ledger, I think the EV mandate is the weakest argument against Elon, because he has consistently, at least publicly, said, it's fine. That's not the big deal. There's some other stuff going on behind the scenes, I think, that we need to get into when it comes to Elon. And I know that Chris has pronounced opinions on Elon's political, knowledge. He may be weakest when it comes to politics and playing the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy's a genius. The guy's brilliant. He's the last American industrialist. He's the guy in tech who's not just giving us a newer, smaller iPhone or another charger you have to replace all of your chargers with. He's the guy out there who's launching rocket ships into space and landing them back on the Earth again. It's incredibly impressive stuff. But it's hard to teach the richest man in the world, who's answers to seemingly no one and isn't even religious, a little bit of humility, a little bit of prudence. And I'm really hopeful that the political game is going to teach him some of that, because he is not the first libertarian billionaire to enter politics and become disillusioned very quickly. I was in the room in 2011 when Charles Koch said, "We're here for the long haul. We're done being in outside politics and libertarianism, where David Koch ran against Reagan and Carter in 1980 and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and got like 1.1% of the vote. The Libertarian Party has consistently never beaten 3.3%, I think, was Gary Johnson's 2016. And that was by far a high mark by a lot. There's not really a path right now for a third party, especially right now. And this sort of frustration is not abnormal. When Charles Koch came back around and said, "We're here to remake the Republican Party into a more free market party that's more in alignment with our principles," he said specifically, "I know this is going to be a difficult time. I know it's going to take years. I know there will be setbacks. I know that there will be disappointments, but we are here for the long haul." And then within 5 years, he took his money home and left. And behind him, he left a huge amount of people who were angry. And at the end of the day, he can come back around with millions, or his institute or his foundation can come back around with millions of dollars. But people know that his name can no longer be trusted, whether it was just unreliability or openly being duplicitous. Those sort of things really matter. That's a lot of currency your reputation has in politics in a free system. So for Musk to be unreliable here, or to attack close allies because they have over disagreements so publicly, is a dangerous move politically. And I know that there's a certain temptation amongst those who are very intelligent and very wealthy and very successful in other fields to come to Washington and tell them, like, "Look, politicians, I'm here. I'm here to save the day. I'm going to make it all better. You guys are waiting for my expertise, right? Everybody wants to get rid of this waste and corruption and bloat and inefficiency." And it turns out they actually don't. That's a real problem with American politics, but it can be frustrating for people who come in from out of town and who are experts in other fields, and they have to kind of learn to get along in order to really have a say. Compare that with George Soros, who's significantly less wealthy than some of these people, but has used that money over the years unrelentingly to help shape American cities into downfall, to help shape the Democratic Party into the image that he wants, to transform Western democracies in a really insidious way. And he did that just through backing financially, unrelenting pressure, and taking setbacks. There was no point where a Democratic nominee got in charge or a Democratic governor showed up or he just decided to take his ball home. He continued, and he made friends and he made allies. That's why at his son's faux wedding on Long Island, there were so many members of the Democratic aristocracy there, even through a rainstorm and all of that ridiculous pomp, because they have close allies in the Democratic Party. And these are things that are built up over years and with trust and with continued giving. You can't just come in like a whirlwind, not get your way, and go back to your room. And I still don't see a lot of animus from Donald Trump here. He's such a practiced interviewer these days that really the only way to get him to make news, and you ask him to ask him a question, is to get him to say something like, "We'll see. We'll see." So you say something like, "Hey, should we catapult Nancy Pelosi into the sun? Have you thought about that?" He'll say, "We'll take a look at it." but he's not going to give you any actual news.
Chris, I want to go
see
through.
here.
I want to volunteer to be George Soros level poor. That's what I want. I'll just volunteer. That's what I'm going to do.
Just a baby billionaire.
Yeah.
Little baby billionaire. Well, let me push back a little bit, or at least defend Elon a little bit, or talk about the other side of the coin here, because on the one hand, you do have a billionaire who looks like he's taking his ball and going home. I completely agree with what Chris is saying when it comes to this libertarian edge, and starting a third party is a disastrous idea. It'd be an enormous waste of money, and it'd be a waste of Elon's time and really power and position. So I agree with all that. And to some extent, the problem of Elon is that he's way smarter than his education, which seems to be, Ayn Rand and some libertarian cartoon politics, as well as reading science fiction novels. And he's much smarter than that and much more capable than that. But that pops out every so often. So I agree with you there. The problem is, though, on the other side of the coin, is that the politicos on the right need all the help they can get. Right. And when it comes to elite talent in tech, Elon as symbol stood for American industrialism, the golden age sort of mentality. And it signaled to a lot of other people who are in technology and in the business sector that, hey, it's okay to support Trump. That was enormously important to normalize that, because Elon was taking the heat. He didn't care. And it allowed a lot of other people to come forward. You saw this after the assassination attempt. So to go into the history here, my concern has always been on the other side of the coin with Elon. It was clear to me from the beginning he was going to ruffle a lot of feathers in that building, in the White House complex, because even people who are, vaguely pro-Elon and who are very pro-Trump and loyal to the president, their job, right, is set in a certain way according to the structure of the White House. And if you got a guy banging around, right, bebopping around the White House with that much power, it's going to upset even good people, right, who are going to say, hey, wait a minute, what the hell is with this guy? And we're the experts here after all. And it's sort of a little bit of both, right? Because Doge was like this. I mean, he came in with Doge. It took enormous powers. It freaked everybody in Washington out, Republicans as well as Democrats. Yet, I would say within it, there were the kernels of very good ideas and a very, very good stuff to sort of slow down the spending. And if people don't get grants on time, boo-hoo. So that was the tension that you saw. And when this came into the press, there's two people, names that would come up, would be Sergio Gore, who's done an excellent job as the head of PPO and finding people who are loyal to the president. I mean, if he has a fault, it's finding people who are too loyal or having too stringent, of a bar. But he's generally done a great job of finding people who are loyal, which is very different than last time. But it's apparent that there was a spat between them. Elon called him a snake at one point online. And the public version of this story is that the final straw was after Elon was already slated to leave. They got rid of his choice for NASA, right? And that really pissed him off. And this was all over the press and sort of a soap opera. But it is like on Elon's side, it's like I gave you a lot of money. You hired other former Democrats. This guy's a former Democrat. I didn't get my way. I'm upset. And so I would say, like, on the one side of the coin, okay, Elon takes his ball and goes home. On the other side, he got involved in some nasty politics within the White House, and there was tension between various people there who I think wanted him, away from the president. And so I would say what you lose by that, maybe you gain something. What you lose by that is potentially some of the efficient measures that Doge put into place, the power of Doge to actually rein in some of the spending, or at least give agency heads an eye on what money is going in and out, which they didn't really have a clear idea of coming as political appointees. And if that all goes away, that's a problem. The Washington Post on Friday just said grants.gov, where you post up the opportunities for everyone to go after grants. That used to be, you had to send everything in through Doge, and they got rid of that. And that leaves it up to the department heads to see what money is coming in and out, which they really need to see. So, that's something valuable. And you also lose a bias towards action. And this doesn't work in government. I get that, right? But the fact that there was tension there and someone pushing for new ideas and biasing towards action, even if sometimes it needed to be reined back. Cabinet meeting in March, Trump famously said, look, the agency heads are in charge of this, the funding and hiring, firing, not Doge employees. And Musk agreed, and they had to rein some things back. But you lose that when you lose Elon, and that does concern me.
Yeah, and Elon was so good at messaging. It's something the Republicans have been terrible at for so long. But the thing that he really got upset about was they were all talking about how they wanted to do the Doge, and then they didn't do the cuts that actually needed to go through. But we see today, actually, the Senate did pass the budget reconciliation, and Vice President J.D. Vance had to go through and break the tie. Let's watch.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
All right, Chris. So where does the big, beautiful bill go from here? Are we going to make that July 4th deadline?
Well, it's tight. It's definitely a tight deadline. The House of Representatives is back in session in the morning to start their considerations. You see a lot of congressmen getting it out of their system, all their problems with this big, beautiful bill. At the end of the day, you've got something that cuts the deficit or cuts more spending than any bill in my lifetime, anything I can remember. It defunds Planned Parenthood. It does no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. It enshrines the Trump tax cuts. If that wasn't done, it would be the biggest tax hike in American history. It very importantly secures the border, which the president's been able to do right now, but he's done that with basically 2 rubber bands and a paperclip. Now this will give him the money necessary to continue with that. It funds the deportations, which you've seen Tom Homan and a crew going around trying to do everything they can, but people have rightly pointed out that these pale in comparison to what Eisenhower was able to do or what presidents in the 90s were able to do with deportations. And that's because they haven't had the resources. This gives them that. These are the things that the president ran on. It's what he said he was going to do. It gets rid of electric vehicle subsidies. It cranks down on some of the Joe Biden energy subsidies, but not all of them. It still allows illegal immigrants to get Medicaid, which Democrats say is not happening, but they get really mad and you say it's going to go away. The Senate parliamentarian made that a 60-vote threshold, and every single Democrat in the Senate voted against it. It doesn't do everything that you want. There are still Obamacare subsidies that are in there. There's still problematic aspects, but this is by and large a great bill, an expensive one. That's the way Washington does everything. That's the reality of a small majority in the Republican Senate and a small majority in the Republican House with a lot of people in there who just like to appropriate. So you take that incremental step and you move it along. And the House of Representatives is going to tweet, and they're going to be angry, and they're going to be liberal Republicans and conservative Republicans alike who take issue with this or that. But at the end of the day, there's only so many chairs, musical chairs, you can select when the tune stops, where you can vote no without actually being the person who tanks the bill. And that person who does tank the bill, it's no longer a protest vote. It's no longer a little tantrum in the corner. Now you've got the ire completely and totally of the president and his voters who asked for these things that are included in the bill and didn't actually give anybody a mandate for big fiscally conservative libertarian reforms to federal spending. So they put themselves out on a branch in a way that's really dangerous to them. There's a couple of them who can still vote no. You're not going to get a yes from Thomas Massey. Chip Roy might be able to get a seat this time, despite voting for it the first time out of necessity. I think those protest chairs will fill up, and I think the House of Representatives will end up passing this.